Have you ever wondered why you're exhausted, even when you do nothing? Why the more you give, the less you're appreciated? Why silence from others makes you feel like you're disappearing, but your own silence makes people uncomfortable? There's something no one told you clearly. Being too available is not kindness. It's not virtue. It's not emotional intelligence. It's a trap. People don't value what's always there. They don't chase what doesn't withdraw. They don't question what reacts immediately. What they value is mystery. What they chase is distance. And what they fear is silence. You've been taught to be present, responsive, helpful, emotionally available, to be a good person. But in reality, that behavior is why they stop respecting you. Not because you're weak, but because you're predictable. And anything predictable becomes a tool. This isn't your fault. It's your programming. And that's exactly what we're about to break. You were trained to respond. Since childhood, you've been rewarded for being good, for staying quiet when angry, for saying yes even when your whole body screamed no. You were conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to your usefulness, to how quickly you answer, how much you give, how much space you don't take up. So now, as an adult, you're stuck in a loop. You reply to messages instantly, even when you're tired. You show up for people who never show up for you. You explain yourself, defend yourself, justify yourself to people who don't even care to understand. And then you wonder, why do I feel drained? Why do I feel invisible? Why am I always the one holding everything together but no one seems to hold me? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You've become emotionally accessible to everyone. And in doing so, you've made yourself emotionally disposable. They don't respect you not because you're not valuable, but because you never required to be valued. You made yourself cheap by always being available. Not out of malice, not out of weakness, out of fear. The fear of being left behind, the fear of being disliked, the fear of losing connections that were never real to begin with. And that's how the cycle feeds itself. You give more, hoping they'll finally appreciate you. But they appreciate you less, and you give even more, until there's nothing left to give. This is how people become emotionally bankrupt. Not by one big betrayal, but by thousands of tiny, silent abandonments of themselves. The world taught you to serve, but it never taught you to protect your energy, and now you're paying the price. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And one of the easiest ways to avoid yourself is by losing yourself in others. By becoming available to everyone, you drown out your own voice in the noise of everyone else's needs. Jung called this the persona, the mask you wear to be accepted, loved, and recognized. It's not fake, it's strategic. You put it on to survive, to belong, but the longer you wear it, the more you forget who you are without it. You become the helper, the fixer, the listener, the peacekeeper, the reliable one. Until one day, you're just tired. Not because you've done too much, but because you've given too much to people who never asked who you really are behind the role. This is why Jung warned, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that can't happen while you're always available. Because becoming yourself requires one thing most people fear: withdrawal. The exhaustion you feel is not physical. It's psychological, spiritual, energetic. You're not tired because of how much you're doing. You're tired because of what you're carrying. You're carrying everyone's emotions, expectations, disappointments, projections, and none of it is truly yours, but you respond, always, immediately. Because deep down you've been taught that silence is rude, that distance is cold, that saying no is rejection. And so you bend gently at first, then constantly, until you break. You answer messages when you need rest. You show up when your soul begs you to stay home. You listen to stories that drain you, but you nod politely. You hold space for everyone else, God, and no one holds space for you. Every yes you say when you mean no is a betrayal of your own energy. And what's worse is, they expect it now. You've trained The people around you to believe that your boundaries are flexible, that your time is free, that your heart is open for business 24/7. And here's the brutal truth. People get used to your availability. They depend on it, not out of love, but out of habit. You become their emotional crutch, their late-night comfort, their emergency contact, their backup plan. But when you finally need something back, silence, discomfort, maybe even distance, this is not because they are bad people. It's because you never required reciprocity. You've given without asking, shown up without expectations, made yourself emotionally cheap, not out of weakness but out of fear, and that fear is ancestral, generational, passed down like a family heirloom, especially if you were raised to keep the peace, avoid conflict, and protect everyone else from discomfort, even if it killed your own. But here's something they didn't teach you. Your energy is not unlimited. Carl Jung believed that the psyche is an energy system, and every thought, action, and emotion costs something. You only have so much to give. And if you don't learn to protect your energy, someone else will learn how to use it for their own gain. This is how people become invisible, not because they aren't valuable, but because they've poured everything outward and left nothing inward. You weren't born to be liked. You weren't born to be useful. You were born to be whole. But wholeness requires separation. It requires limits. It requires the terrifying act of saying, no more. No more answering every message. No more showing up for those who vanish when it's your turn to need. No more bleeding emotionally just to prove that you care. You don't need to explain your silence, it explains itself. When you stop reacting, something powerful happens. The game changes. People who thought they could trigger you suddenly can't. Those who relied on your emotional labor become frustrated. Those who expected you to always be there start to question who you've become. And in that confusion, you reclaim yourself. This is not about revenge or punishment or ego. This is about protection, conservation, sovereignty. You are not cold. You are no longer codependent. You are not distant. You are discerning. You are not heartless. You are finally heart-conscious. And yes, some people will fall away. Let them. They were holding on to the version of you that was easier to use. Let their silence reveal their intentions. Let their distance prove your clarity. Because those who respect your energy will never be threatened by your boundaries. They will honor your time. They will not demand your availability as proof of your affection. The right people will never guilt you for taking care of your soul. And in your silence, in your refusal to explain yourself, you will become powerful. Because now, for the first time, your energy is your own. Your presence becomes rare, and what is rare becomes respected. You've spent enough of your life being accessible to everyone. Now it's time to be deeply, unapologetically available to yourself. The shift begins not with words, but with space. Make room for your voice again, for your feelings, for your intuition, for your wholeness. Withdraw, not to hide, but to return, because only in the silence will you hear the truth. You are not exhausted, you are overextended, and the cure is not doing more. It's choosing less. You don't need to be everything for everyone. You need to be fully yourself, and that begins with sacred, strategic, conscious unavailability. You've been everyone's solution for too long. Now, it's your time. Return to your center. So now ask yourself, why do you keep saying yes when your whole body says no? Why do you respond so quickly to texts, to criticism, to emotional demands that leave you empty? What are you so afraid will happen if you just stop? Will they stop loving you? Will they replace you? Will they call you selfish, cold, unavailable? And if they do, what does that say about the relationship? Because if your value disappears the moment you set a boundary, it was never about who you are. It was about what you gave. Be honest. Are you offering love? Or are you negotiating for approval? Are you being kind, or are you afraid of being rejected? And most of all, who are you when you stop performing? Who are you when you're not the reliable one, the strong one, the understanding one, the always there one? You've built your identity around being emotionally accessible, but that identity is killing your peace. It's keeping you from meeting your real self. And the scariest part is this. Maybe you've never seen yourself without the mask of usefulness, but if you don't pause now, you'll keep living for their comfort and dying in silence. It begins with one word. No. Not screamed, not explained, not wrapped in apology. Just no. The kind of no that doesn't ask for permission. The kind of no that ends conversations instead of starting arguments. Because healing doesn't always start with adding something new. It starts by subtracting everything that's draining you. You don't need to announce your transformation. You don't need to defend your silence. You don't need to justify your absence. Your energy is your responsibility now. Start with small withdrawals. Wait before replying. Breathe before reacting. Decline what doesn't nourish you. Turn off the noise. Leave the room. Don't respond just because someone expects you to. And yes, it will feel strange. Maybe even selfish. That's because your nervous system has been trained to equate exhaustion with worthiness. But you are allowed to rest, to disconnect, to leave texts unanswered, to protect your peace as if your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the journey of becoming whole, demands that you walk away from the collective, from the roles, from the masks. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming conscious. Conscious of where your energy goes. Conscious of who gets access to your heart. Conscious of what you tolerate and why. Because emotional discipline is not just about controlling your reactions. It's about choosing not to engage where your soul is not respected. You are not obligated to be emotionally available to those who feed on your empathy, but offer nothing in return. You are not here to be someone's emotional punching bag, comfort, blanket, or guilt-based validation source. You are here to be whole, and wholeness requires sovereignty. So pull back, not to punish but to preserve. Say less, show less, give less, not from bitterness, but from wisdom. Because sometimes the most radical act of self-love is unavailability. When you stop being available to everyone, something sacred begins to happen. First comes the silence, not the silence from others, the silence within. At first it feels like loneliness, but it's not. It's space. Space you've never had before. Space that used to be filled with noise, with expectations, with endless emotional transactions. Then comes the discomfort, the guilt, the voices in your head saying, "You've changed. You're being distant." They'll walk away, and maybe they will. But here's the truth. What you lose in the process was never truly yours, because anything that depends on your constant availability to exist was built on your absence to yourself. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And that process of accepting yourself starts with letting go of who you became just to be liked, accepted, needed. So, when the silence comes, don't run. When the guilt surfaces, sit with it. When the distance grows, let it. That emptiness you feel, it's not a void. It's a beginning, a clearing, a sacred emptiness waiting to be filled, not with noise, but with truth, with your voice, your values, your boundaries, your essence. You were not born to live on call. You were born to stand still in your center and let the world meet you there or walk away. And the most powerful part, you won't chase them anymore. Because once you taste the peace that comes from protecting your energy, no chaos is seductive, no attention is tempting, no drama is worth your peace. So now ask yourself one final question. Are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, or even forgotten in the name of your own inner freedom? Because if you are, you've already begun the journey back to yourself. If This message reached something deep in you. Write in the comments, "I protect my energy now." Let the world see that you've made the choice. And if this kind of truth speaks to your soul, subscribe to the channel, because this is only the beginning. If this message woke something inside you, comment, "I choose inner peace over approval," because that choice changes everything.